Love it! I love it, the avalanche!
Heenan giving instructions.
King Kong Bundy was more than just a towering wrestling monster, he was a trailblazer who helped shape the golden era of sports entertainment. His unforgettable presence in the ring, from epic battles with Hulk Hogan to surprising moments of agility, earned him a special place in the hearts of wrestling fans worldwide. But behind the scenes, Bundy's legacy took a heartbreaking turn. Despite his impact and unforgettable career, he was mysteriously left out of the WWE Hall of Fame, a place where many legends are immortalized. What happened? This isn't just a story about wrestling, it's about the toll the business takes on its stars, the battles fought long after the final bell, and a tragic struggle that robbed King Kong Bundy of the recognition he truly deserved. The early life of Chris Pauli, the man behind the monster. Chris Allen Pallies was born in 1955 in Woodbury, New Jersey, a place where his incredible physical presence was noticeable from a young age. Even as a child, Chris stood head and shoulders above his peers, not just because of his size, but because of his natural athletic ability and fierce determination. Growing up, he wasn't just the big kid in class, he was someone who commanded respect, both for his stature and his drive to succeed. Wrestling quickly became Chris's passion. In high school, he dedicated himself to amateur wrestling, honing his craft with an intensity that set him apart. His hard work paid off as he dominated the regional wrestling scene, winning 2 regional championships before graduating in 1974. These victories were no accident, they reflected Chris's discipline, focus, and the competitive fire burning within him. Wrestling wasn't just a sport, it was a calling that shaped his identity and future. After high school, Chris made a crucial decision that would change his life forever. He enrolled in Larry Sharp's Monster Factory in Belmar, New Jersey. The Monster Factory wasn't just any wrestling school. It was legendary. Known for producing some of the biggest names in professional wrestling, it was a place where raw talent was transformed into electrifying performers. For a young man of Chris's size and ambition, it was the perfect proving ground. At the Monster Factory, Chris refined his skills and learned to combine his natural power with showmanship and technique. This training set the stage for his evolution from a promising amateur wrestler to a larger-than-life professional powerhouse. It was here that Chris began to build the foundation for the legendary persona that fans would come to know as King Kong Bundy, an unstoppable force inside the ring with a heart and spirit that matched his monstrous size. The early wrestling career, from Chris Kanyon to King Kong Bundy. Chris Pallies' journey into professional wrestling began quietly, but with undeniable promise. On March 7, 1981, he stepped into the WWF ring for the first time under the name Chris Kanyon. His debut victory over Strong Kobayashi was a glimpse of the raw power he possessed. This young giant was more than just a towering figure, he had potential that wrestling fans could feel. But Chris knew deep down that his wrestling persona needed to match his intimidating physical presence. Simply being big wasn't enough to make a lasting impact. That transformation started in Texas with World Class Championship Wrestling, WCCW. At first, he wrestled as Big Daddy Bundy, a name that didn't quite capture the full force of what he was becoming. His career took a dramatic turn when he found himself embroiled in a fiery feud with the Von Erich family, Texas wrestling royalty. The Von Erichs were beloved heroes, and the rivalry was intense, filled with drama, emotion, and all the things that Texas wrestling fans lived for. Enter Gary Hart, a manager with a knack for spotting not just talent but star power. Hart saw in Chris something beyond a big man, he saw a monster. An unstoppable force who could captivate the audience and terrify his opponents. It was Hart who gave him the iconic name King Kong Bundy, calling to mind the legendary movie monster known for sheer size and brutality. The name was perfect. It evoked fear and awe, fitting for a wrestler who was about to become larger than life. One of the defining moments of this era was completely unexpected. Bundy lost his hair in a match, something that might seem like a loss to most wrestlers, but for him, it became his trademark. His bald head wasn't just a look, it was a symbol of menace, making him instantly recognizable and even more intimidating. When King Kong Bundy marched into an arena, no one doubted they were facing a real monster. Building a monster, The Road to National Stardom. After establishing himself in Texas, wrestling's grueling territorial system took King Kong Bundy on a journey across the United States, a rite of passage for any wrestler chasing national stardom. Each territory was its own universe, with unique wrestling styles, legends, and passionate fan bases. For Bundy, this was more than just traveling, it was a relentless education. Night after night, city after city, he learned, adapted, and honed his craft. This period was tough, filled with long drives, physical punishment, and constant pressure, but it forged him into the monster the wrestling world would soon fear. In the American Wrestling Association, AWA, Bundy quickly earned a reputation as a destructive force. His immense size was intimidating, but it was his aggressive style and unrelenting power that truly made opponents think twice before stepping into the ring with him. The fans began to whisper his name with a mixture of awe and dread. Yet, one of his crowning moments during this time came in Georgia Championship Wrestling. Teaming with the charismatic and crafty superstar Bill Dundee, Bundy achieved what few believed possible. They defeated the legendary Road Warriors to win the NWA National Tag Team Championship. The Road Warriors were the yardstick for dominance, massive, aggressive, nearly unbeatable, and to overcome them was a statement that Bundy was no mere giant, he was a true wrestling powerhouse, but it was in Mid-South Wrestling where Bundy really made a mark with something that would become his signature. Frustrated by the traditional 3-count pinfall rule, Bundy demanded referees count to 5 instead. On the surface, it might have seemed like a gimmick, but it was genius in its simplicity. Each 5-count pinfall symbolized total annihilation, sending a clear message that Bundy's victories were far from ordinary. This psychological twist gave his matches an extra layer of intimidation, painting him as a competitor who didn't just win, he crushed, he destroyed, he dominated completely. WWF arrival, unleashing the monster on the big stage. By 1985, King Kong Bundy's reputation had grown enough to catch the eye of the World Wrestling Federation, the country's biggest wrestling promotion. On March 16 of that year, Bundy made his WWF debut, and it was immediately clear he wasn't just another wrestler, they were unveiling a monster. When Bundy finally appeared on WWF's Championship Wrestling, fans and commentators alike were stunned by his sheer physical presence. Towering over most wrestlers and possessing an almost overwhelming aura of power, Bundy was the embodiment of an unstoppable force. His first match was against Mario Mancini, a relatively unknown wrestler who had the misfortune of being Bundy's inaugural opponent in the WWF. The match was short but devastating. Bundy quickly demolished Mancini, laying down a clear marker for what fans could expect. This wasn't just a win, it was a warning that a new monster was on the prowl. Jimmy Hart, wrestling's notorious "Mouth of the South," quickly became Bundy's manager. Hart's fast-talking, brash personality was the perfect foil for Bundy's silent, brutal power. Together, they made a compelling team. Hart's charisma helped amplify Bundy's menace, turning the giant into a main event caliber villain that fans loved to hate, but it was Bundy's match against Special Delivery Jones that truly announced his arrival on the national stage. In what seemed like the blink of an eye, Bundy crushed Jones in just 9 seconds, delivering his devastating avalanche splash followed by a punishing big splash. The referee barely had time to count, and even Bundy's trademark 5-count felt rushed. This was no ordinary victory, it was a seismic shockwave that reverberated throughout wrestling. Bundy wasn't just big, he was lightning fast for a man of his size, and his power was utterly overwhelming. The feud with Andre the Giant, When Titans Collide. Just as King Kong Bundy's star was rising, he found himself thrust into one of the most high-profile rivalries in wrestling history, an epic clash with none other than Andre the Giant. This feud would define Bundy's early WWF career and cement his place in wrestling lore. Andre the Giant was more than a wrestler, he was a living legend. Standing over 7 feet tall and weighing nearly 500 pounds, Andre was wrestling's ultimate colossus. For an astonishing 15 years, he had been nearly undefeated, a towering figure in the sport and a symbol of wrestling mythology. To step into the ring with Andre was to face an icon, and most wrestlers wouldn't dare, but Bundy wasn't most wrestlers. Under the guidance of legendary manager Bobby, the Brain, Heenan, Bundy was positioned not just as a competitor but as a monster capable of toppling giants. Heenan, a master strategist and mouthpiece, understood Bundy's potential and helped build the narrative that this was more than a wrestling feud, it was a battle for the very soul of what it meant to be a giant in the ring. Their rivalry exploded when Bundy ambushed Andre during a match, delivering a brutal barrage of avalanche splashes. The impact was so powerful that it broke Andre's sternum. A serious, painful injury that shook the wrestling world. This wasn't mere showmanship, it was a real-life moment that illustrated the sheer force behind Bundy's persona. For fans, it blurred the lines between scripted drama and genuine danger, making their feud feel raw and electrifying. The matches that followed were tense, dramatic affairs packed with moments that made crowds hold their breath. Every collision of these two titans was a test of strength, endurance, and willpower. Bundy's power and aggression matched against Andre's size and resilience created a spectacle that drew viewers in, making them believe they were witnessing something truly monumental. Tag team action and the Battle of the Giants. King Kong Bundy's legendary rivalry with Andre the Giant wasn't limited to just one-on-one matches. It spilled over into tag team battles, raising the intensity and the stakes. These matches were more than just contests. They were spectacles of strength, strategy, and storytelling that captured the imagination of wrestling fans everywhere. One of the most memorable moments came on Saturday night's Main Event, a show that was one of the few wrestling programs broadcast nationally during that era. Bundy teamed up with fellow powerhouse Big John Studd, a man who matched Bundy's size and ferocity. Their opponents? The colossal Andre the Giant, joined by the equally formidable Tony Atlas. Atlas wasn't just big, he was known for his impressive strength and surprising agility, a perfect complement to Andre's legendary size. The atmosphere in the arena was electric. Fans could feel the collision of titans before the bell even rang. This wasn't simply a wrestling match, it was a theatrical battle, a clash of giants where every slam, every grapple, and every move told a larger story of power, dominance, and pride. Bundy and Studd, as a tag team, became a fearsome force of destruction. Their combination of brute strength and tactical teamwork allowed them to match Andre and Atlas blow for blow, creating a dynamic that kept fans on the edge of their seats. What made these matches so compelling wasn't just the physicality but the storytelling, the way each wrestler's personality and style added layers to the conflict. Bundy was the monster, Studd the ruthless enforcer, Andre the legendary giant, and Atlas the powerhouse with heart. Together, they made every match feel like a historic event, and the crowd responded with thunderous cheers and gasps. Taking on the biggest name, Hulk Hogan. While King Kong Bundy was already making a name for himself in the tag team scene, he had his eyes set on an even bigger prize, the chance to take on the biggest star in wrestling at the time, Hulk Hogan. Hogan wasn't just the WWF champion, he was the face of professional wrestling during its explosive boom in the 1980s. With his charismatic personality, trademark mustache, and never-give-up attitude, Hogan had become a symbol of hope and heroism for millions of fans around the world. For Bundy, challenging Hogan wasn't just another match, it was stepping into the spotlight against the very embodiment of wrestling's golden era. Their rivalry kicked off in dramatic and brutal fashion. Bundy, alongside his partner the Magnificent Morocco, launched a sudden, savage attack on Hogan, leaving the champion battered and nursing cracked ribs. This wasn't merely a scripted beatdown to push a storyline, it was a defining moment that perfectly established Bundy's role as the ultimate villain. He wasn't just a big guy in the ring, he was a monster who could threaten even the most beloved heroes, a dark shadow looming over the WWF's brightest star. That attack set the tone for the feud, painting Bundy as a nearly unstoppable force who could shake the very core of the WWF. Fans loved to hate Bundy for his relentless aggression and viciousness. His presence made every encounter with Hogan feel electric and personal. The anticipation of seeing Hogan overcome such a brutal foe made their matches must-watch events, filled with tension, drama, and high stakes. In many ways, Bundy's role as the antagonist against Hogan helped define the era, creating unforgettable moments where good battled overwhelming power, and the crowd's cheers for Hogan became even more passionate. Bundy wasn't just a challenger, he was a monster that tested the heart and spirit of a wrestling icon. The Bulldog Challenge, King Kong Bundy's adaptability. While Bundy's showdowns with towering giants captured headlines, another chapter of his career quietly showcased a surprising side of his wrestling ability, his adaptability. Alongside Big John Studd, Bundy aimed for the WWF Tag Team Championships, then held by the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid. The Bulldogs were a fascinating contrast to Bundy and Studd. Smaller, faster, and technically gifted, Davey Boy and Dynamite Kid relied on speed, precision, and high-flying moves against the sheer brute force of Bundy and Studd. It was a classic matchup of agility versus strength. For many fans, the question was simple: could Bundy, known primarily as a massive powerhouse, keep up with the Bulldog's fast-paced style? What unfolded was a revelation. Bundy didn't just rely on raw power, he adjusted. He began moving with a surprising level of agility and ring awareness, anticipating the Bulldog's swift attacks and responding with smart, calculated moves. The matches evolved into a fascinating contrast, the Bulldog's quickness and finesse against Bundy and Studd's overwhelming force and strategy. Although Bundy and Studd never captured the tag team titles, their bouts with the Bulldogs were important for another reason: they expanded Bundy's identity as a wrestler. He wasn't just the unstoppable monster, he was a multifaceted athlete capable of adjusting to different opponents and telling stories through movement and ring psychology. The audience saw a new side of Bundy. One that was intelligent, versatile, and dynamic. The unconventional six-person tag, wrestling's human drama. Perhaps one of the most unique and memorable moments in Bundy's career was his involvement in an unconventional six-person mixed tag team match, a contest that highlighted his ability to tell stories beyond mere physical domination. In this extraordinary match, Bundy teamed with two legendary Little People wrestlers, Little Tokyo and Lord Littlebrook. Their opponents? The fan-favorite Hillbilly Jim and his partners, the Hangmen. The sheer contrast in size and wrestling styles made this match unlike anything Bundy had done before. Wrestling fans were treated to a thrilling display of contrasts. Here was massive power meeting nimble agility, raw strength colliding with clever tactics, and all wrapped in the larger-than-life spectacle wrestling is known for. The crowd was caught in a roller coaster of emotions, from awe to laughter to suspense. At one breathtaking moment, Bundy lifted the diminutive but fierce Little Beaver high above his head and slammed him down with thunderous force. The impact was almost surreal, like a mountain crushing a pebble, but instead of feeling cruel, it was part of the storytelling. Moments later, Bundy delivered his signature avalanche splash, a move that seemed devastating given the size difference, yet it was met with cheers and gasps. What made this match stand out wasn't just the physicality or the novelty of the size mismatches, it was the human drama. The match ebbed and flowed with tension and humor. When Bundy's partners suddenly turned on him mid-match, it added unexpected twists that captivated the audience. Suddenly, Bundy wasn't just a brute, he was a performer who could evoke a wide range of emotions, keeping fans hooked from start to finish. This match showed Bundy's incredible range as a performer. He could be the unstoppable monster, the tactical tag team partner, and even a character in a more whimsical, theatrical story. His ability to adapt made him stand out in a roster filled with talented and charismatic wrestlers. King of the Ring 1987, endurance and skill on display. In the wrestling world, big guys like King Kong Bundy often get tagged as unstoppable powerhouses, but there's a common assumption that their size can work against them when it comes to endurance and speed. Tournaments like the King of the Ring, which require wrestlers to compete multiple times in a single night, often expose these vulnerabilities. But Bundy was about to challenge that stereotype in a way few expected. Later in 1987, Bundy entered the King of the Ring tournament, a grueling test of stamina, skill, and adaptability. For many giants, the tournament pace was too much. Quick recoveries and the ability to shift strategies on the fly were crucial, and size often slowed competitors down. Yet Bundy powered through, surprising fans and critics alike with his conditioning and toughness. It was clear he was no one-dimensional brute. He wasn't just relying on his massive frame, he was showing heart, determination, and a surprising level of athleticism. Match after match, Bundy pushed forward, knocking down opponent after opponent, refusing to let fatigue or pressure slow him down. He advanced all the way to the finals, where he met one of wrestling's most electrifying stars, Macho Man Randy Savage. Known for his lightning-fast moves, technical skill, and unmatched charisma, Savage was a completely different type of wrestler, quick, flashy, and unpredictable. Their final clash was a thrilling contrast of styles. Bundy brought raw power and dominance, Savage countered with speed and strategy. While Bundy ultimately lost the match, the bout was more than just a loss, it was a statement. It proved Bundy wasn't simply the big guy who relied on size alone. He was a well-rounded competitor, someone who could hold his own against the best and most dynamic wrestlers in the business. This performance elevated Bundy's reputation, showing the world that beneath the towering exterior was an athlete who understood pacing, psychology, and skill. The shocking victory over Hulk Hogan, a moment that changed everything. Hulk Hogan's name carried weight beyond the wrestling ring. By the late 80s, Hogan had transformed from a wrestler into a cultural icon. Hulkamania was sweeping across the globe, fueled by Hogan's charisma, motivational spirit, and seemingly unstoppable aura. He was the hero millions cheered for, the face of WWF's explosive growth. So, when King Kong Bundy scored a win over Hogan at Saturday night's Main Event 13 in late 1987, it wasn't just any victory, it sent shockwaves throughout the wrestling community. Now, it's important to note that Bundy's win came via count-out, not the typical pinfall or submission finish that signifies a definitive victory. Some might dismiss this as a technicality, but for wrestling fans, any form of victory over Hogan was monumental. It shattered the illusion that Hogan was invincible, reminding everyone that even giants could be toppled. For Bundy, this win was more than just a notch in his career, it was a moment of validation. He wasn't just the big bad monster lurking in the background, he was a real threat, someone capable of shaking the foundations of Hulkamania itself. The victory put Bundy in the spotlight as one of Hogan's most credible foes, and every match that followed felt like a genuine battle for the top spot. The psychological impact of this moment was huge. Fans began to see Bundy not just as a powerful giant, but as a force who could disrupt the WWF's hero narrative. It raised the stakes for every encounter between Bundy and Hogan, turning their matches into must-watch events filled with tension and drama. Of course, the story didn't end there. Hogan got his revenge in the rematch, reclaiming his dominance and restoring order in the eyes of the fans. But Bundy's win remained etched in memory as a rare moment when the seemingly untouchable Hulk Hogan was pushed to the brink. It was a moment that proved Bundy's legacy as one of the most formidable threats of his era, a monster who could challenge even the biggest names in the business. Stepping away and returning, the later career years. After years of headline-grabbing battles and unforgettable feuds, King Kong Bundy surprised many when he quietly stepped away from the WWF in early 1988. It wasn't a dramatic exit or a bitter fallout, rather, it reflected the natural ebb and flow of wrestling's ever-changing landscape. The 80s had been dominated by larger-than-life giants like Bundy, Big John Studd, and Andre the Giant, but as the 90s approached, the industry began to shift toward a new generation. Wrestling styles evolved, the spotlight turned to different kinds of athletes, and fresh faces started to take center stage. Despite leaving the WWF's main spotlight, Bundy never truly left wrestling. He maintained a low profile but continued to wrestle on and off in smaller promotions and independent shows. For Bundy, wrestling wasn't just a job, it was a passion and a way of life. Even without the bright lights and roaring crowds of the WWF, he stayed connected to the business that had defined much of his life. Then, in late 1994, Bundy surprised fans by returning to the WWF, joining the notorious villainous faction known as the $1 Million Corporation. Led by the infamous $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, the group was filled with imposing wrestlers and ambitious personalities aiming to dominate the WWF landscape. Bundy's return wasn't just about nostalgia, it was a reminder that the monster from the 80s still had plenty of fire left in him. One of the highlights of this comeback came at the 1994 Survivor Series. Teaming up with fellow powerhouse Bam Bam Bigelow, Bundy was part of a dominant force that steamrolled through their elimination match opponents. Facing a team led by fan favorite Lex Luger, Bundy and Bigelow's raw strength and brutal tactics made them a terrifying duo to face. Their teamwork and sheer presence electrified the crowd and brought back memories of Bundy's prime days. The Royal Rumble shock and final high-profile matches. Wrestling is a world full of surprises, and even legends aren't immune to its unpredictable nature. King Kong Bundy's comeback in the mid-1990s was met with a stark reminder of how quickly the tides can turn in this business. At the 1995 Royal Rumble, Bundy's return to the ring took an unexpectedly swift turn. Despite his imposing stature and storied past, Bundy was eliminated in just 3 minutes, by Mabel, a newer giant making waves himself. For many fans, this moment was shocking. Here was a man who had once crushed Hulk Hogan, who had taken on the likes of Andre the Giant, now taken down quickly by a rising star. It was a symbolic passing of the torch. A reminder that wrestling is as much about timing and momentum as it is about raw power and legacy. The spotlight that once shone so brightly on Bundy was fading, and the next generation was stepping forward to carry the torch. But Bundy wasn't ready to fade quietly. His final WrestleMania appearance came at WrestleMania 11, where he squared off against one of wrestling's most enduring and chilling figures, The Undertaker. While this wasn't a headline main event, the match was a powerful moment in its own right. Bundy showed flashes of the monster that had once dominated rings across the country, trapping The Undertaker in the corner and unleashing his signature avalanche splash with the same devastating impact that fans remembered. Though Bundy didn't win that night, the match was a poignant reminder of his lasting presence. Even in the twilight of his career, King Kong Bundy still commanded attention and respect. He could still make the crowd hold their breath, feel the tension, and believe in the dramatic storytelling that only professional wrestling can deliver. It was a fitting final chapter for a man whose legacy had long been built on dominance, charisma, and unforgettable moments in the ring. Life after wrestling, battling real demons. Retirement from wrestling often marks the beginning of a new, more personal battle for many wrestlers, and for Chris Pallies, the man behind King Kong Bundy, it was no different. Years spent throwing his massive body into matches, enduring crashes and falls, took a deep toll on his physical and mental health. One of the darkest challenges Pallies faced was the lingering effects of repeated head trauma. In wrestling, the risks of concussions and brain injuries were well known but often downplayed or ignored during his era. Pallies, like many of his peers, began to experience firsthand the serious consequences these injuries could have. Determined to fight back and raise awareness, Pallies joined a landmark lawsuit against WWE. The lawsuit accused the company of negligence, claiming that WWE had failed to properly warn or protect wrestlers from the dangers of repeated head trauma. Legal papers alleged that the company not only neglected to provide adequate medical care but also actively concealed the risks involved, prioritizing entertainment and profits over wrestler safety. This lawsuit sparked important conversations about the darker side of professional wrestling, one that fans rarely saw behind the glitz and drama. Though the courts ultimately dismissed the case in 2018, its impact on public awareness was significant. Many wrestling insiders believe this legal battle played a role in Pallies' exclusion from the WWE Hall of Fame, a painful reality for a man who had left an undeniable mark on wrestling history. Hollywood cameos and comedy nights. King Kong Bundy beyond wrestling. King Kong Bundy's influence extended far beyond the wrestling ring. His unique personality and towering presence caught the attention of pop culture in surprising and entertaining ways. One fascinating tidbit that many fans may not realize is that the infamous Bundy family on the hit sitcom Married, with Children was actually named after King Kong Bundy himself. The show's creators were wrestling fans and chose the name as a nod to the giant wrestler's larger-than-life persona. Bundy even made multiple guest appearances on the show, much to the delight of fans who loved seeing their wrestling hero in a different light, away from the snarls and slams, revealing a lighter, funnier side. Bundy also tried his hand at film roles, where his natural charisma and size made him a perfect fit for certain comedic parts. In the 1988 comedy Moving, he starred alongside the legendary Richard Pryor as a clumsy mover, an amusing contrast to the intimidating wrestler the world knew. He also appeared as a wrestling coach in Weird Science, bringing his authentic wrestling experience to the screen in a way that fans appreciated. Later in life, Bundy shocked many by stepping into an entirely new arena, stand-up comedy. Trading in body slams for punchlines, he took to comedy club stages, charming audiences with his quick wit and down-to-earth humor. This transition showed that beneath the monstrous exterior was a genuinely funny and relatable man, capable of connecting with people in unexpected ways. Saying goodbye to a legend. On March 4, 2019, the wrestling world lost a true giant. Chris Pallies, better known as King Kong Bundy, passed away at his home in Glassboro, New Jersey, the very place where his incredible journey began. At just 63 years old, his death from complications related to diabetes was a heartbreaking reminder that even the biggest monsters have vulnerabilities. But when we look back on King Kong Bundy's extraordinary career, we see far more than just another towering figure in the ring. Bundy was a trailblazer who redefined what it meant to be a big man in professional wrestling. Before him, giants often relied solely on their size to intimidate opponents, lumbering slowly through matches. Bundy changed that narrative by combining his massive frame with surprising speed, charisma, and storytelling ability. He showed that a giant could be fast, funny, and deeply engaging, an entertainer who captivated fans beyond just brute strength. Bundy was known for his unforgettable feuds, including a brutal encounter where he broke Andre the Giant's sternum, a feat that sent shockwaves through the wrestling world. He took on the era's biggest stars with a mix of raw power and cunning, proving that he was more than just a monster. He was a versatile athlete and a compelling performer. What made Bundy stand out was his ability to work with anyone, no matter their size or style, and make every match exciting. Whether facing quick, technical wrestlers or other giants, he adapted his style and brought an intensity that made every bout memorable. Today, when modern giant wrestlers sprint down the ramp, deliver sharp promos, or showcase unexpected agility, they owe a debt to King Kong Bundy. He laid the blueprint for all future giants, proving that size and skill can coexist. His legacy lives on not just in the memories of fans but in the very way big men wrestle today. Your one click can help us keep creating awesome stuff.